Necessary assumption questions are one of the most common types of LSAT logical reasoning questions, and they can make or break your score. Today, I'll show you how to master them. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now today, in this video, we're breaking down the most effective strategies for tackling necessary assumption questions. Here's what we'll cover. First, we'll cover how to spot these questions using keywords. Secondly, 2 powerful frameworks for solving them. And 3, common trap answer patterns and how to avoid them. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear, repeatable process for tackling one of the trickiest and most common types of questions on the test. First, let's talk about how to spot necessary assumption questions. They're all about what the argument requires to hold up the argument. So you want to look for keywords in the question stem like depends upon, requires, and assumes. These are all, of course, synonymous with necessity, and these are your red flags telling you that this is a necessary assumption question. If the question stem doesn't explicitly use necessary language but asks about an assumption, you do still want to treat it as a necessary assumption question by default. Secondly, of course, we need to understand the argument. Focus on finding the conclusion, identifying the evidence supporting that conclusion, and asking yourself, what is missing or flawed? In other words, what is the gap? As you analyze the reasoning, what is the disconnect between the conclusion and the evidence? In other words, how is it possible for the evidence to be true, as given, of course, yet for the conclusion to be false? Your job here is to find the gaps and anticipate the missing piece the argument needs in order for it to make sense. Now, necessary assumption answers fall into 2 major categories. The first is linking the conclusion back to the evidence. The second is defending the argument against potential problems with the claim. So first, linking is when you want to create a logical connection of sorts between the evidence and conclusion. So for example, if the evidence says eating a balanced diet reduces the risk of disease, and the conclusion is eating a balanced diet leads to a longer life, the linking assumption would be that reducing the risk of disease increases life expectancy. However, we might also have defender assumptions where the argument doesn't have an obvious internal gap between the evidence and conclusion, but instead the argument is vulnerable to external problems or threats. And so we want to defend the argument by ruling out those possibilities. So for example, if an argument concludes that building electric cars will reduce carbon emissions, a threat or potential problem could be that producing electric car batteries generates significant pollution. And so a defending assumption would counteract this by establishing that battery production does not contribute significantly to overall emissions. Now, of course, we want to make sure that we can spot common trap answers with necessary assumption questions. So you do want to watch out for patterns like choices that are out of scope, bringing in irrelevant details that don't directly address the argument. You want to look for weakeners, which are choices that hurt the argument rather than information that is required in order for the argument to work. You want to watch out for choices that are too strong, that go beyond what is required for the argument, because our job is not to provide new information that guarantees the conclusion, but rather that is needed to be the case in order for the argument to work. And of course, as always, watch out for incorrect negations or reversals that mix up terms or the order of conditional statements in the argument. And of course, if you'd like my help with necessary assumption questions in logical reasoning or anything else at all on the LSAT, there are a wide variety of ways that I could support you at LSAT Unplugged. You can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.